Hello, everyone. This is Mike Isbitsky, Technical Evangelist with Salt Security, and welcome to another episode of MythBusters API Edition. Now, if you're new to this series, the goal is to dive into some security trends that impact organizations and their API security strategy. The format of the videos, we cover, what does the approach or technology mean, just to get everybody on the same page as far as, what does that thing mean? And then we talk about how does that not equate to API security, or why is that approach or technology only one small piece of the puzzle? Developers will build in API security. Now, I don't mean this as a knock against developers, right? We're just kind of acknowledging a myth, or in this case, it's kind of a misconception or a thought of how the world of software development should be. Now, the reality is developers are creating awesome things. All these mobile apps, all these services we use, whether it's something like Grubhub, or maybe you're into social media, so you love Facebook, maybe you love video streaming, so Netflix or Amazon Prime, right? The world is full of cases of applications and certainly APIs, right? Because APIs power all those things, and developers have to create all of that code. The problem is in the security industry, there's often been this thought that it's the responsibility of developers to secure everything in code, right? They're creating it, they know it best, so they should do it all. And it's kind of gotten worse, right? The world of waterfall, trying to test everything pre-deployment. There was this pressure by security teams to check everything, and they were just running out of time, right? And in that world of waterfall, it's weeks or months between releases. And then it got worse as organizations moved into agile development methodologies and DevOps practices, right? Those release windows really got compressed, and security teams felt the pressure. So there was kind of this concept of shift left, right? Let's get more developers engaged. Let's get security introduced earlier into the SDLC. There's a lot of benefits to doing that, right? The cost to fix is lower, there's less time wasted, less cycles, certainly for developers, but also security teams. The problem is it kind of got pushed too far. That's why I like to call this shift left extremism, right? With DevOps, there was really this big push. Let's get developers to do it. We can't satisfy it all in security. Security is everybody's responsibility. Everybody's under the gun, right? That's the reality. But we have to remember the primary goals of a given IT persona in the organization, and that is, developers work to code, right? And code to the business requirements or functional requirements. Now, security exists to try to protect everything, right? Protect the organization, try to mitigate the risk of incidents or breaches or privacy impacts. So everybody's under the gun. But it's important to remember that the developer's primary focus and how they're going to fill their days is to satisfy those business requirements and create functional code. Security will always be an afterthought, right? That is the reality. Now, we talked about how shift left aimed to increase security awareness, right? If we can push more of security earlier into the SDLC as part of design and development, hopefully as developers are creating the code, they'll incorporate the right security measures, and then lo and behold, we have secure application and API. And the goal was to reduce friction, right? Notoriously, development and security, there was a lot of friction. Security added too much workload, too much latency to delivering things, potentially latency in the application, right? We talked about how some security systems create availability problems and performance problems. What's really happened, or I've seen happen at some organizations with shift left, when they push this too far, it actually creates kind of a new type of friction, right? We've pushed too much onto developers, so now they're in charge of running all security testing tools, maybe even runtime security tools, and yet they still have to do the coding, right? So they've become overloaded. So it's actually created a new type of friction, which defeats the purpose, right? We should shift left, but not everything. We also kind of need to keep things on that right side, which is runtime. The other reality too with software engineering is that as organizations build things, usually there's distributed teams working on it, right? And I might build one piece of the API or one microservice, and another team's going to be responsible for other things. Maybe they handle all the input, so they're going to be in charge of input filtering, and I just create a certain business function. That's ideal, right? We distribute internal teams, but what most organizations end up doing is they outsource, right? Contract development work or offshore things, right? So now you have time zone differences, potentially as well as language barriers, right? So your knowledge starts to get splintered. It's very rare that you can find any developer or engineer that's going to have complete knowledge of the entire application and its architecture, right? That's usually multiple roles that would have all those pieces of the puzzle. So knowledge of that complete working system is very distributed. And really the takeaway, right, when you talk about shift left, what's the goal of it? And, as part of DevSecOps programs, the aim should be that security, it should be low touch, right? Developer, like I said, we need to be coding to business requirements. That's our primary work goal. We can't be, down in the weeds with a static analyzer trying to configure that thing, or a dynamic analyzer or a fuzzer. Just not, part of my job. So low touch is important. Minimal configuration, hopefully fully automated, right? But those things are difficult to fully automate in a build pipeline. Security services should be Git-centric, right? Git-based workflows are the name of the game in all engineering now as part of DevOps practices. The tooling should be accessible in development and engineering tool chains, right? I don't want to step out and run some other tool. I need to be able to run it within my IDE and get the necessary output, so I'm not switching between systems, which cuts into my work time. And all this tooling really needs to provide high signal to noise ratio. Right? I talked to many organizations that starting in this world of introducing security testing into build pipelines, and false positives became a very real problem, right? They have thousands of findings. They don't know how to triage all of that, let alone make a programmatic decision as part of build pipelines. Should I pass or fail this thing? If you're staring at over 100 issues or 1,000 issues, are they realistically exploitable? We don't know, right? And that's kind of where the human element comes in. And now automation's kind of gone out the window, right? We're almost back in that world of waterfall and change gates, which nobody likes to talk about. And why is secure coding and shift left, these concepts, why are they not equating to API security? Well, the biggest issue is that a lot of API security controls actually must exist external to code. Not everything we do to secure a system is done in that application code base, right? And this is a big problem with that security mindset of, if the application itself's not secure, then it'll in the code, it'll never be secure, right? But it's not acknowledging the fact that a lot of controls actually exist external to the code base, like your identity and access management systems or API gateways to mediate calls to APIs, or maybe trusted encryption systems, right? There's many mechanisms that go into a complete system. It's not just what exists in the code base. And when organizations get into the world of APIs, and sometimes that's through cloud adoption, sometimes it's through DevOps programs, maybe it's part of digital transformation, which is kind of the umbrella of that covers all of these things. But as the organization starts to see more APIs, it really exposes weaknesses of security testing, right? And this is usually the focus of shift left. I want to get all my security testing introduced into design and development stages and run as part of builds, right? So those things occur automatically as part of CI/CD build process. The problem is static analyzers and dynamic analyzers were already limited efficacy. They're only covering, so many types of issues in code, usually, weaknesses or vulnerabilities that follow well-defined patterns. And code coverage is a problem, right? Or test coverage. How do I make sure these tools are hitting all of the aspects of the code and all of the functionality it's a big problem, right? When you talk about running unit tests and test automation scripts like Selenium, it's really difficult for a lot of organizations to scale that and operationalize things. So as you automate this, right, you have to make concessions, usually tuning configurations to run quicker, and it's diminishing returns because your scanning tools were already limited efficacy. Even if you had all the time in the world, now it's even worse, right? Because you might only have an hour to run all of your scans as part of a build. And logic flaws are out of scope for security scanning tools. They just can't find them. They're not designed for that. Because they're not going to understand your business logic. Understanding business logic really requires runtime analysis and behavior analysis. So you have to look at things as they're deployed on infrastructure. This is really the only way you can detect business logic flaws and certain types of API abuse. So credential stuffing, credential cracking, scraping, aggregating, right? There's a very large spectrum of business logic attacks that security testing tools just can't find. You can't test for those things in build pipelines. So API security strategies, for mature organizations, they really stress fast attack detection and response, not just build pipeline tooling. And with that, I'd like to thank you for watching another episode of MythBusters API Edition. I'd encourage you to go to the Salt Security website. It's salt.security. We have a wide range of content, ranging from blog articles to white papers to case studies, as well as videos. We're going to be producing a lot more of this content in written and video form. We're also producing digital events and hopefully, get back to physical events in the near future. I'd encourage you, if you have interest in the Salt Security API protection platform, certainly reach out to us. We can set up a demo for you. And if you have any questions in general about API security or, in this content in particular, certainly reach out to us. Thank you.